The Ghislaine Maxwell sex trafficking trial resumes today in a federal court in Manhattan. The defense will begin to lay out its case in the hopes of painting Maxwell as a scapegoat for the alleged sex crimes of Jeffrey Epstein. He took his own life in prison in 2019. Maxwell faces 8 counts of sex trafficking and other charges for allegedly grooming girls as young as 14 for Epstein. She denies these allegations. CBS News legal contributor and former Manhattan prosecutor Rebecca Roiphe joins us now to talk more about this. So, Rebecca, good to see you. Explain the defense's strategy here.
The defense is mostly trying to distance Ghislaine Maxwell from Jeffrey Epstein. So I think, that it's inevitable that the jury will see them as associates, business associates, close friends, potentially even romantically involved. But what the defense wants to do is make it clear that they may have been business associates, but they were not associates in crime. And the question is whether they can do that successfully. In order to do it, they have to cross-examine some of these alleged victims and suggest that their memories are faulty or that they have some kind of ulterior motive that they're using here. And those are tricky defenses, in part because the lawyers do not want to appear as if they are blaming victims, which is an unpopular strategy these days. So it's a tricky defense. We'll see if it works.
As I understand it, they have quite a list of witnesses. This is expected to go on for a bit, and maybe at least more than a week, I think. Is Maxwell, though, expected to take the stand?
It's really hard to know at this point. The defense has made some statements about their timeline, suggesting that they're going to significantly pare down the number of witnesses that they're going to call, and that they could present the case rather quickly. If they do that, then it seems unlikely that they will be calling Ghislaine Maxwell to the stand. But, I think the jury probably is eager to hear from her, but it's a risky move from defense attorneys. And I could imagine that given the calculation and the concerns and risk on cross-examination, that they may choose not to do that.
Maxwell's attorneys have asked the judge to allow several of their witnesses to testify anonymously. Is this common, and will the judge likely allow it in your estimation?
It's incredibly unusual. In fact, I've never heard of it, which doesn't mean it hasn't happened, but I haven't heard of it. Normally, you see prosecution witnesses testify anonymously. Even that's fairly rare, and only in the cases of, an undercover officer whose identity one has to preserve in order to preserve their ability to continue working, or sometimes an underage victim of a sex crime, as in this case. But even that's fairly unusual. So the reason why is that, as we're all following this trials are a public event, and the public has a right to know what's going on. And so therefore there have to be extraordinary circumstances in order to justify this. And it's hard to imagine what those might be. The mere fact that a witness does not want to be embroiled in a high profile case or doesn't want the collateral consequences socially or professionally that might come with it is not excuse enough. So we have to wait to see what the defense is rationale here is. Why are they asking for this before we can know whether the judge will grant it or not?
But some of her accusers were allowed to testify anonymously, though, right?
Right. I mean, so women who were underage and alleged victims of sexual abuse is one of those rare examples of a time in which the court will allow witnesses to testify anonymously, and there are obvious reasons for that. I suppose one thing that one could speculate, perhaps these are underage, other underage women who want to suggest that they were involved in, with Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein and never saw any of this conduct. So it's possible that that's what's going on, which is an unusual defense. But, maybe, in which case what they would be claiming was the same right as the prosecution's witnesses to anonymity. But if it's merely the fact that this has become a high profile trial and that, witnesses for Ghislaine Maxwell would face repercussions socially or professionally, then I don't think that's going to fly. So we just have to wait to see how this is, all unfolds in court, because it will be determined by exactly what the rationale or reasoning that the defense attorneys have for this request.
So, Rebecca, just to sort of clarify, if you are saying that you were the victim of sexual abuse as a minor, you are no longer a minor now, but as a minor you were a victim, that would be grounds for being able to testify anonymously, even if you are sort of accusing someone else of a crime?
Yeah, so there is law, as the judge said when she made this ruling, there is law that protects people not only when they are minors, but people who have experienced that kind of trauma, or allegedly experienced that kind of trauma, and it is. Again, it's a rare case because it's balancing that public right to know what is going on with the unique, I suppose, kind of impact that this could have on somebody who experienced that kind of sexual abuse when they were underage.
So, Rebecca, how long could it be before the defense rests, and how quickly do you think we'll see a verdict?
So again, as you said, initially the defense had compiled a very, very long list of witnesses, and it was expected that the defense was going to go on for quite some time. Recently, they have suggested that they've pared down this witness list and that they are going with a more streamlined defense. So if that's the case and it really lasts, I think, as they suggested, 4 days, then we can imagine that the case will be wrapped up fairly quickly. Then, of course, the question of when we get a verdict is another question, because it depends on how long the deliberations go on. Now, it's not like the law in this case is very complicated, but the facts are, and it again depends on where the jurors start. So if they start off in a state of relative consensus on where they want to go, what they're thinking, how they view the facts, then it could be a fairly quick verdict. But if there's a real disagreement and an effort by one group of jurors to convince another group of jurors, then it could drag on for quite some time. So it's really hard to predict how long it will be before we get a verdict. But at least at this point, it looks like the defense is going to be shorter than it said it would be before. And so the trial itself could wrap up within a week.
Rebecca Roiphe, thank you very much.
Thank you. Nice seeing you guys.
Vlad, they submitted like almost more than 30 people initially that they wanted to take the stand. You know who's not there and who hasn't been there for a really long time? Ghislaine Maxwell's husband. You remember she married a guy,
yes.
And they, all that whole time where people were like, "Where is Ghislaine Maxwell?"
Yes.
And they found her living in a lavish house by the water with a gentleman. Well, haven't seen him in a while. A lot of people are wondering why he hasn't been showing up at the courthouse to support him.
That is an interesting detail.
I know that has nothing to do with the case, but it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
In the meantime, for more in-depth coverage of the Maxwell trial, you should head on over to our local stream, CBSN New York. Just download the free CBS News app or head on over to cbsnews.com/live.